All right, we're going to get started. First off, welcome everyone. As I had mentioned just a few minutes ago, this presentation is being brought to us as a collaboration between two major organizations, Seton Hall University and the International Council of Psychologists. And the component that is supporting us through the International Council of Psychologists is making it possible for us to offer this presentation today as a webinar. And so while we have the people in the room, we also have well over 300 people who are watching this live stream from Brazil, Asia, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. So welcome everybody. As I mentioned before, we are in South Orange, New Jersey, and it is morning time here, and we are very lucky to be having an opportunity to hear a really exceptional presentation today, which I will mention in just one moment. There are a couple of people that we just need to thank that have made this possible. The person who's collaborated with me in just making this happen at all is Tom Mazzarelli in the College of Education and Human Services, and the thanks that I'm passing along are coming from both of us. Seton Hall and ICP share a mission in that we all value the idea of servant leaders and in serving human rights around the world and providing education to people. And as such, there are multiple components of today that are in the spirit of what both organizations are trying to do. Within Seton Hall, this has been a collaborative project between the College of Arts and Sciences and the College of Education and Human Services, and obviously the Teaching, Learning, and Technology Center because of the technology that's making this webinar possible. I'd specifically like to thank, because of their support, Dean Peter Shoemaker from Arts and Sciences, Associate Dean Janine Buckner for her support here today, Dean Maureen Gillette from Education and Human Services, and the many students that are helping us, including the School Psychology Leadership Association of Seton Hall, Psy-Chi, and the Psychology Club. And from the International Council of Psychologists, a special thanks to Mary Bullock. All the communication that everybody's been receiving around the world has been happening because of Mary. So thank you, everyone. So now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Debbie Joffe Ellis. Dr. Joffe Ellis has studied internationally in India. She has served various international causes and been recognized for her contributions to alternative medicine, to leading the creation of an addictions treatment program in Mexico. She has been recognized for her contributions in volunteer leadership after the attacks of 9/11. She currently teaches as an adjunct professor at Columbia University and writes for Psychology Today and other outlets. Most notably, Dr. Joffe Ellis is the world's leading expert on rational emotive behavior therapy, and that's due to her collaborations with her husband, who was Albert Ellis, the designer and creator of rational emotive behavior therapy. It's impossible to overstate the contributions that Albert Ellis made, not only to psychology, but to the way people talk and the way organizations function today. He was central to the cognitive revolution. He was central to the cognitive movement in therapy. And many of the treatment protocols we see today and ideas around human potential and growth and psychological health came from him. And in fact, they've not only shaped psychology to the point that it's part of common language, his ideas have been infused into our culture to the point that people don't even realize that he was the one who introduced these. And I think we're going to be getting some very valuable insight about that today. I want you to know that Dr. Joffe Ellis will be making her presentation. There'll be opportunities for question and answer at the end, and there will be opportunities to purchase books outside in the lobby once the presentation is done. Most notably, Dr. Joffe Ellis has been entrusted by Albert Ellis to continue his work. That's what she's doing here today, and that's what she continues to do in her lectures around the world. And today we're fortunate enough to be seeing her present on preventing anxiety, the passionate and compassionate approach to rational emotive behavioral therapy. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Debbie Joffe Ellis.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just keep the applause going. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's quite a long stage. Can you hear me? Am I turned on, or is my microphone turned on, so to speak? Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that welcome. If I may say a few thank yous too before I get into the nitty-gritty of the topic that Dr. Simon shared with you, that I'm sharing about with you today, and I've noted names. Firstly, thank you to Dr. Andy Simon, who's spent hours in making this possible, and you've heard how eloquent. He in himself contributes so much to psychology, not only in the USA, but around the world, and being part of the ICP body, just an amazing man. Seton Hall University is so fortunate to have a professor like Dr. Simon, so thank you. And yeah. And also, of course, Dr. Tom Mazzarelli, who is somewhere. Hello, yes, who Dr. Simon said is such a part of making this possible. The International Council of Psychologists, as Dr. Simon mentioned, Mary Bull. Where's the camera that I look into for the people watching on live stream? There are 3 cameras. Where are they? But if I want to gaze into, there's one, and there's one, and there's one. All right. Thank you, Mary, for all of your amazing work, and the members of Seton Hall University. I love the word SPLASH, School Psychology Leadership Association of Seton Hall, SPLASH. And Psy-Chi, Psychology Club of Psychology Department, the technical people making this possible. All of you who are here, some of you, I guess, braved the rainy weather of the East Coast, and camera, right? One and one and one, yes, is that without? And thank you, all of you watching either in real time or after this very moment. As Australia, my native Australia, New Zealand, India, Malaysia, the Caribbean, Brazil, places in Europe, etc. It is a joy and a pleasure and a privilege to be here because I get the opportunity to share with you an approach and tools and techniques that are not only part of, in my view, the most holistic therapeutic approach under the cognitive umbrella and other umbrellas, but it's also a way of life for those of us who choose to adopt it as such. Talking about rational emotive behavior therapy, from this point on I'll call it REBT to save like 15 minutes total. I feel that one of the greatest tragedies of humankind is that so many of us are not aware that we have a choice about the emotions that we experience when bad things happen. And if we don't know we have a choice, then really do we have a choice? Hardly. Anxiety is a killer. And it's tragic, I believe, that so many people in this one life we have can waste time, can waste energy, worrying. They think it's normal. Of course I'm worrying. This is happening, that happened. He treated me this way. She dumped me. Of course I'm anxious. They don't realize that it doesn't have to be, of course I'm anxious, but that they have a healthy choice, not to ignore, not to repress, but to face facts with realistic optimism, to get real, and to choose to live a life with enriching emotions. That doesn't mean that they're always happy. It means they're often not happy, but they're healthy, they're enriching, and they don't debilitate us. And one of the gifts of REBT, as you'll hear me describe in a little while, is that it clearly distinguishes between the healthy and the unhealthy, debilitating emotions. And a main focus of my presentation today is anxiety. And that's one of the paralyzers. That's one of the killers. There's a whole body of knowledge and research that I certainly don't have time to go into this morning or this afternoon or tonight, depending on when you're watching this, that demonstrates the undeniable mind, emotion, and body connection. And the way that our emotions, and specifically now I'm going to talk about the debilitating emotions, affect this physical body that we live in, and can weaken the immune system, which leads to us developing perhaps a genetic condition that otherwise may have lain dormant and not manifested at all. And so for people in the field, in the helping fields, in the caring fields, psychologists, counselors, social workers, teachers, and any other human being who just wants to help another person and who wants to help themselves minimize emotional suffering, especially unnecessary emotional suffering. It's like watching fiction and taking it to heart when it's only fiction. If we want to minimize unnecessary emotional suffering that debilitates and maximize joy, I personally don't know of a more effective tool in therapy and in everyday life than REBT. Forgive me if my voice sounds a little whatever it sounds like at times. I was in the past few days giving workshops and presentations at Lynn University and at a children's clinic in Florida. Hi, Florida. Hello, cameras. But anyway, so occasionally I might do a... So... Here's the outline. Here's the plan for today. And I'm going to take this clunky watch off. I'm going to first share with you the basic elements of rational emotive behavior therapy. And then maybe I'll do a live demonstration. I say maybe because that will require a volunteer. And I don't kidnap volunteers. They have to be volunteers. So we'll see how that goes. I have a hunch there might be one. And then I want to share with you the tools and techniques of REBT, say a few words with the focus on anxiety in REBT. It's possible in the future there may be an opportunity for me to do a presentation focusing on depression. Don't know, but today it's anxiety. And then opportunity for questions and answers. Well, hopefully answers, but I'll listen to your questions. Okay, so first of all, the basics of REBT, which was, as Dr. Simon indicated, created by my late husband, the genius, Dr. Joffe Ellis. And he gave credit where credit was due. You know, I notice with some newer approaches, they appear to be sort of chips off old blocks with new titles, and they can appear like they're inventing the wheel, but there are a few spokes missing. As I said before, I love the holism of REBT. And the genius of Al was that he was able to bring together immense research that he did, coupled with his constructive genius, based on the way he overcame his own emotional pain throughout his life, and translated it into words in books, and he gave lectures that were both respected by people who were intellectuals, academics, and equally just the regular person off the street. When I say regular, it's not to imply that academics and professionals are irregular, but You get my drift. Maybe some of the time. And to express it simply. Isn't that one of the definitions of genius, to take complex concepts and express them in a way that a majority of people can understand? And so Al gave credit to the influences in his life, in his study, in his research that became part of REBT, and they included the Stoics, Stoic philosophy, Eastern philosophies, contemporary philosophers of his time, Dewey, Bertrand Russell, some of the behavioristic work that was going on, some of the elements of Alfred Adler's work. But Al was vocal in challenging what was, in his generation, when he was a young man, the lord of the psychotherapeutic universe, Freud. And Al found, he studied psychoanalysis. Students of psychology in those days, in the 1930s, 1940s, didn't have a choice. And Al studied Columbia University, Teachers College, same building where I teach, which is kind of neat. And so he graduated and was practicing psychoanalysis under supervision. And he found that while some of his, I prefer the word clients, but in that time, the people that therapists work with were referred to as patients. He found that some patients felt better after a session and got some insights, but a majority of them, he said, didn't seem to be getting better because they continued to think in ways that created the unhealthy emotions with which they came to him for help in the first place. And so bit by bit, he became more active directive. More and more, he reminded people that you're responsible for your emotions. Each one of us is responsible for our own emotional destiny, if we're willing to do so. Otherwise, we truly allow ourselves to be victims of circumstances and other people. When we know we have a choice, we have a choice. So with his research, with his genius in constructing new ideas, the influences that I mentioned, and largely, again, the way he coped from early childhood when he was often very ill and spent long months in hospital, to teenage years where he had social anxiety and a paralyzing fear of talking to girls, which was an issue because he really did want to go on dates. He had a terrifying fear of public speaking, and yet he was elected to be president of a college group which required him to talk in public. And so he practiced doing the things on himself that became part of the techniques of REBT, which I'll be sharing with you in a little while. And so I am warmed by the fact that REBT didn't start as a hypothesis to be proven or disproven, but as a way for a golden-hearted, sometimes colourful languaged human being who wanted to help other people, born from the way he helped himself, then helped other people, non-professionally, then professionally. And as Dr. Simon mentioned, the world of psychotherapy was changed forever. So the basics of REBT, the first essential element may sound familiar to those of you who are familiar with Stoic philosophy of Epictetus and others. And it is. It's not an event that creates our emotion, but our perception of the event that creates the resultant emotion. It's not what happens, but what we tell ourselves about what happens. It's not what someone did, but what we tell ourselves about what they did and should or shouldn't do that creates the resultant emotion. The next major reminder and element of REBT is when we think in healthy, rational ways in response to adversity, not getting what we want or getting what we don't want. Then we create healthy, productive emotions. And in REBT, if it's in response to adversity, we'll call them healthy negative emotions. Negative not because they're bad, because they're not bad, but negative because they're not pleasant. And then when we think in unhealthy, irrational ways in response to getting something we don't want, some tragedy in our lives or in the world, then we create debilitating, unhealthy, negative emotions. Now, one of the many gifts of REBT, have you noticed there's an E in it, emotive? And it really gives equal, if not more, attention to the emotions and clarifying with precision what we're experiencing. And if we're a therapist, as we seek that in our client, it can help us become more effective therapists. As human beings who want to maximize achieving much of our potential, I hesitate to say all of our potential, because is there all of our potential? Is there a limit? I don't believe there is. We can reach a goal and then perhaps aspire to others. In any case, when we're able to identify precisely the emotion that we're feeling, we can assess, is this healthy or unhealthy? And if it's unhealthy, you're going to hear tools about what to do to change that. So, REBT distinguishes between the healthy versus unhealthy negative emotions. The unhealthy negative emotions include anxiety, panic, extreme fear, depression, rage, guilt, shame. And when we think in healthy ways about the same event or catalyst, then we create the healthy counterparts of concern instead of anxiety, extreme panic, and fear. We experience appropriate grief, disappointment, and sadness. Sad isn't bad. Neither is grief. Neither is disappointment. Rather than depression. You know, I've lost many of the closest people in my life. When I lost, they've passed away. And, you know, after some months, after some of those losses, some well-meaning people would say, why are you still grieving? You know, move on, and so forth. You're a psychologist. Why are you still in grief? Isn't it? It's remarkable, the saintly platform on which we psychologists are sometimes put. We shall never suffer. We're above and beyond being human. Not. But hopefully we do our best to be ethical and to practice what we preach on ourselves as well as others. So I appreciated the good intention of people who might say that, but I wouldn't want not to grieve, because to me, and I'm not talking about the initial raw stages where one can kind of be in somewhat a depressed state or a dissociative state or in a state of shock, raw early days. But as the weeks and months go on, and to me that kind of grief is coupled with the love for the person or people we've lost, with the awareness that in a sense we're deprived of their physical presence, but not of the love we experience when we remember them. So that's an example of REBT's stance that grief is not unhealthy, and it's enriching. So, then the healthy counterpart, when we think in rational ways about the same situation where we may have created rage, is, for want of a different word or expression, healthy anger. Now, what does REBT mean by healthy anger? REBT is humanistic to the core, and it encourages us to be aware of a moral compass and to strive to do more good than harm, preferably no harm, which is a bit of a stretch. We're fallible humans and will in all likelihood make some mistakes. And there's an implicit understanding in REBT that if a person isn't suffering from some sort of disturbance, there will be an inclination to do more good than harm. And so healthy anger would arise, would be created by a person according to the way they think about a situation. It's that perhaps adrenaline-fueled, no, when we witness a cruel situation, a brutal situation, are a recipient of brutal behaviour, see tragic events in the world. It's that no, but we're still in control. We're able to think before we act. We choose to think before we act and can assess, do I run for the hills? Do I call 911? Do I breathe? Do I calmly speak to this person? We're able to make, at the time, the best decision that we think is the best decision, rather than act impulsively, react, as is what happens when rage is created. And as I trust you'll agree, rage generally doesn't help matters and more often than not may do more harm than the original situation that provoked the rage, and also can lead to death. So is that clear, the healthy anger as distinct from rage? Then when we think in healthy, rational ways, we will create regret rather than shame and guilt. With shame and guilt, we're putting ourselves down, we're damning ourselves, we're belittling ourselves. And it's constricting, it's restricting. Shame and guilt are major contributors to suicide attempts. Whereas regret, we're in touch again with our moral compass, and we're willing to accept we're fallible human beings and to earnestly desire to learn from our mistakes or mistaken behaviour, ugly behaviour, with the goal of not repeating that. So I hope I've made clear now the distinction between the healthy versus unhealthy negative emotions. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of REBT, the difference between the irrational beliefs that create an inner hell and the rational beliefs that create emotions that nourish and motivate. Concern motivates us to do what's important to do. Let me say, REBT is not about being in some neutral zone. REBT wants us to live a passionate life, a healthy, intense life. This life is a gift. There's so much that's amazing if we're willing to stop and think about that and realize that. So it is a pity, it's a waste of life not to make the choice to learn how to think in life-enhancing ways and keep applying them. So let's start with irrational thinking that creates, again, those unhealthy emotions. When we think in irrational ways, We have demands. We have oughts and musts and shoulds. Al was kind of creative in constructing words and new phrases, and he came up with a number of terms that are part of modern day lingo. One of them is stop shooting on yourself. The other one has a U in it. And he would say, stop, with a U, it's not my Aussie accent, stop masturbating. I said that once in another country and they thought I meant masturbating, and I didn't get much of a laugh at all. But I used REBT not to feel ashamed because I knew my good intention. So we have rigid demands. And Al, in his genius, was able to identify 3 core irrational beliefs from which countless others grow and flourish. And as I share them with you, please reflect on whether you believe them or any of their branches. The first one is, I must do well and be loved, liked, approved of by everyone. That is one of the core contributors to anxiety, because if I need you to approve of me and you don't, if I need you to like me or love me and you don't, then I may create a panic within myself. You should love me. I can't stand it when people don't approve of me. It's awful. And so forth. So I must be liked, loved, approved of by everyone. The second one is, you, individuals and people out there, you must treat me well and act, behave in life the way I think you should. And that belief is at the heart of hatred and terrorism, where people adopting a certain belief or beliefs think that all people should think, believe, and behave the way that they do. And if others don't, they should be damned or killed. It's at the heart of terrorism. It's at the heart of racial prejudice. It's at the heart of practically any disease in society. And the third one is, life should be fair and with justice. Al used to say, lots of luck. And yet when we think it should, and we observe every day, if we're aware of what's going on, that it's not, then we may live in fear. What if this happens to me? Oh, I've got new neighbours of that culture. Fear, 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 because of what they're associated with in the person's mind. Fear, anxiety. So they're the core 3 irrational beliefs from which countless others sprout. The need for perfection, the need for certainty, the need for guarantees. Oh, how people feel anxious when they have to know what's going to happen, what will be. How can we know? Isn't it a fact that the only thing we can know is what's happening right now and what has been? If our memory doesn't fail us or distort what has been. And yet so many people not aware that they must know how might it turn out, how will it turn out? Anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. Okay, continuing to share with you the aspects of irrational thinking. Catastrophizing, awfulizing. Al created those words, aren't they great? And part of modern lingo. I travel, I give presentations wherever I can when I'm invited to keep the flame of brilliant REBT alive, the passionate and compassionate REBT alive. And sometimes when I get back and it's 2 a.m. and it's 3 a.m. and I can't sleep and I put on Go Figure, Law and Order, SVU, and the other night Mariska Hargitay was saying, Elliot, stop your catastrophizing. And I thought, I know who invented that word. Catastrophizing and awfulizing are at the heart of anxiety. What will be? Again, a fear of what will be, a desire for certainty so that there's not this unknown that's like a ghost hovering with arrows of anxiety poison. I just made that up, I don't know why. Anyway. When we think in irrational ways, we blow things out of proportion. We take things way too seriously. There's an absence of humor. There's LFT. Does anyone know what that stands for? Perhaps some of, yes? Yes, low frustration tolerance, right. In other words, I must have what I want when I want it, little baby that I am. It creates the grave illness of I can't standitis. No medical cure has been found for that yet. We cure it with our brains. When we think in irrational ways, we adopt absolutistic thinking, stereotypical thinking, and overgeneralizing. You always treat me this way. I'll never amount to anything. He is evil. She's always so good. Now, REBT and Al was very much enamored with general semantics and the work of Alfred Korzybski, who reminded students and readers that no one is good or bad. We do good things, hopefully more good than bad, or we do bad things. But linguistically, semantically, to say someone is evil means they only ever do evil things. And similarly, say someone is a saint, always, well, I guess there are a few people who reach the saintly mark, but they're quite rare. Say someone's good means they only ever do good things. And that's pretty improbable too, although thankfully, I'm sure we all know people who do a lot of good, thankfully. So we won't know till seconds before a person dies whether they've been good or evil. Because where there's life, there's hope of changing. So REBT, like general semantics, discourages absolutistic thinking and overgeneralization. And finally, REBT's description, or one of the elements of irrational thinking, is the damnation of ourselves and of others and of life itself when things or people or we don't do or go along the way we think they should. I hope, as I've said these things, as I mentioned before, that you've reflected on whether you do you have adopted any of those thinking tendencies, and if so, I urge you to think about changing them. And I'll go into the how-tos in a little while. So when we think in rational ways, it's the opposite of what I just mentioned. We have preferences, we have desires, we have wants. As I said, REBT isn't about us being neutral or namby-pamby. Yes, let's have passionate desires and do what we can to achieve them if they're not unhealthy in any way. If we don't get what we want, we're more likely to make ourselves feel concerned, disappointed, sad. Whereas if we demand we should get what we want, then we're more likely to make ourselves anxious, depressed, or one of the other unhealthy emotions. Is that clear? So desire passionately, but that's different. The emotional outcome will be different than if we demand. When we think in healthy, rational ways, we don't think in absolutistic, overgeneralizing and stereotyping ways. We have a sense of humor. We strive to see things in a balanced, healthy perspective. The flavor, the manner that REBT recommends to us, as I mentioned earlier, I think is realistic optimism, because where there's life, there is hope, if we're cognitively able enough and still alive and kicking. When we think in rational ways, we have HFT. What does that stand for? People watching, you're probably louder than these people. I think some of them thought, or some of you are gazing at me with seriousness. High frustration tolerance. In other words, I can stand what I don't like. I just don't like it. And the final essential element of rational thinking is one of the core contributions in REBT that isn't so much emphasized in other cognitive approaches. And it's urging us and it's encouraging of us to adopt the practices and attitudes of unconditional self-acceptance, USA, unconditional other acceptance, UOA, and unconditional life acceptance, ULA. Can you see here how this contributes to REBT's compassionate nature? But again, it's also a no-nonsense, cognitive, passionate approach. And you'll hear more about that when I describe the tools and techniques. Now, the element of unconditional other acceptance has been quite a controversial one. Many people used to say to Al, and then since his passing and when I present, have asked me or said to me, how can you expect a person who's been brutally raped, whose relative has been murdered, who's been bullied, who suffered excruciating cruelty at the hands of others, how can you expect people to unconditionally accept them? Well, we have a choice, but this is why REBT urges us to do so. First of all, to consider where does it get us not to make the effort to do so. Al came up with this expression you may have heard of, holding on to hatred and bitterness is like eating poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's not going to hurt them. It will eat us. It will make us sick. It may mean we die much, much sooner than we might have and in greater misery. So that's one reason. How to do it? How to do it? Here's what REBT recommends. I've practiced this. There have been situations in my life and in my professional life with my husband where we were in very, what Al called brutal circumstances in our work situation, and we did our best to practice this, and it works. It works if you make the effort, ongoing effort. So if you have decided you want to breathe freely, you don't want to harbour hatred, and you want to adopt a way of unconditional other acceptance, then if you are willing to consider that, let's say, here is the evil-doing person. That person was once an innocent baby too. An innocent little baby, like every one of us. And consider if any one of us had had their genetic makeup, their brain chemistry, their biology, if any one of us might have had a similar upbringing, maybe being bashed and bullied, or maybe being indoctrinated with certain beliefs that weren't too humanistic. And if any one of us may have gone through adolescence feeling not good enough or not belonging, and maybe found a group that made us feel special and made us believe that if we do certain evil acts, so they didn't say evil, great things would happen. If we were indoctrinated. If we grew up in a family where a member was, if they were angry, they just bashed you, so you grew up thinking that's normal, that's what happens. When we're young, we don't yet have the ability to discern what's healthy, what's appropriate, what's right, what's not acceptable and immoral and unethical. If we'd had their teen years, their puberty, their young adult years, being rejected, being fired, whatever. And if any one of us were thinking what that evildoer was thinking at the moment they did their evil act, isn't it highly likely that any one of us might do something like that too? If you don't agree, as Dr. Simon said, towards the end, there'll be opportunities for questions and discussion, so please, share your thoughts, if any, then, particularly if you don't agree. REBT reminds us every one of us is a fallible human, capable of making mistakes and making great choices, capable of thinking in rational ways and irrational ways when we know we have the choice. REBT reminds us that as far as we know, most animal species, maybe not little amoebas that react, but other species think. But as far as we know, humans may be the only animal species that can think about our thinking. What am I telling myself now? So, unconditional other acceptance is doable, it's possible, it can take a lot of effort, it can take a lot of telling oneself the words before you feel it here or here, but the more often you tell yourself there, it'll get to here and here. Speaking as one who's experienced it and knowing many others who have experienced it, who have suffered way worse brutality than I ever could imagine. It's a choice. It's a choice. Okay, so continuing to share with you the main elements of REBT. I'll remind you again, With awareness, we have choice. And finally, to create and maintain ongoing, lasting, healthy change requires ongoing effort, ongoing practice, ongoing effort. It usually isn't enough for a person to have an epiphany or an aha or a conscious realization. That's the beginning. But then it requires ongoing effort and application of the awareness of rational beliefs and adopting perhaps one or some or many of the tools that I'll share with you in a little while. So, now what I'd like to do is ask whether there's a courageous person who is willing to share a real issue that they're experiencing right now. I don't want to do a role play. I don't want to demonstrate REBT on an issue that you kind of got over, but you want to talk about it. And I know it can require some courage. But is there anyone? Perhaps anxiety is an emotion that you would like to lessen. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer? Yes, thank you. Please come up. And I would ask that people here and people viewing, if you want to talk about, please do come up. Thank you. If you want to talk about what you hear, please don't identify the name of our courageous volunteer. Talk about whatever issues. Please take a seat. Thank you. This here, is that okay?
Thank you.
But I guess the tech people will let us know if that's near enough, far enough. Okay. Is there... What's the time, please? Someone. 11:56. Is there someone who could let me know when it's, say, 12 minutes after? Yes, could you tell me who you are, where you are? Or just yell? It's great, thank you. Actually, let's say 12:15. 12:15, yeah, let your alarms sing out in unison. Okay. So, I'll be right with you what's your name?
Sandy.
Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. So, when I'm talking to Sandy, Sandy's going to get my attention. I request that you keep as quiet as possible, including shuffling paper and all, because it's just easier for us not to get distracted. And at the end of our time together, there'll be an opportunity again to ask questions and so forth. Please observe and listen. Rational, or shall I say irrational beliefs. Oh, would you like to take the mic? Would that be better? Okay. Irrational beliefs aren't always obvious at first. Not everyone does us the favour of saying, I should always and he should never. Sometimes it's implicit. And it's also very helpful to listen to what may be behind the words that are being spoken, and also to observe body language, non-verbal, and all of that. So please observe with me. Please no talking or shuffling of potato chips or anything, and just focus on us for the next 15, 20 minutes. Sandy, thank you for volunteering. Yeah, you might need to talk a little.
Sure.
And let us know, Sean, will you, if it's not loud enough, Sandy, or it's good? Okay. So, Sandy, first of all, can you tell me, and it's like you and me, we forget about them. What are you feeling right now?
Nervous. This is completely out of my comfort zone, but I'm happy to volunteer.
It's great that you did. Where do you feel your nervousness?
I'm just a little nervous.
And what do you think you're telling yourself to make yourself nervous?
That I've never done this before, but, open to try something new.
Okay. You know, Sandy, what you just said is a fact. I've never done this before. That alone, I suspect, isn't enough to make you nervous. Because some people would come up and, I've never done this before, and they wouldn't be nervous. So what might you be adding to that to create the, shall we call it anxiety, nervousness?
Just the fact that I'm, that I might be able to share personal information and, struggles.
Right. Because if you share personal information, then what is it about that creates your anxiety?
I'm not sure.
What might it be?
Sharing.
What might it be?
No, just to be, able to share personal information with, people I don't know, or...
Because what could happen that would, give credence to your anxiety? If you share personal stuff, people you don't know, then...
Maybe judgment.
They might judge you. Yeah. As what?
I'm not sure.
What might it be?
I'm not really sure. Maybe, just the fact to share something with people I don't know, but I'm not sure what would, I'm not sure why.
Mm-hmm. So if I was like, I'm real nervous now, I'm feeling anxious, because I've never done this with you, and people are watching me. What do you think I'd be telling myself to make myself nervous?
Maybe something negative about yourself. Maybe
Like
I'm not
what?
good at this, or I don't know if I'll do it right, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty right, that, I should do it right or else they'll judge me, and I probably would be thinking, and that would be awful. I couldn't stand it because I want everyone to think well of me. And if they don't, behind the is, it means I'm not good enough and worthless. So that might be what would make me nervous and anxious if I were. Can you relate to any of that?
Sure, I guess I didn't think about the details, but, or the depth.
Guess what? We're going to look at
Yes.
details. Hello.
Sure.
And again, thanks for your willingness. So it matters to you what strangers think of you.
Usually.
Where does that get you?
I'm not sure.
Does it help you?
No.
So if it doesn't help you, what does it do?
I think negative thinking that, I need to do good all the time or put more effort into doing better, something like that.
Because if you don't, then...
Then it's, it's just negative thinking that maybe you're not good enough or
That-
you're not doing...
that you're not good enough. You're talking about you now. And if you're not good enough, then...
Not sure. I'm not sure. then it's just,
You
it's a
think you
negative, trait.
Yeah, but
Right.
negative is very general. Do you mind if I'm assertive like this with
Sure,
you?
no problem.
Yeah. So I have a hypothesis from what you say, and tell me if I'm wrong. I could be. That you believe I, Sandy, need to be good enough all the time.
Usually I feel that I have to do my best all the time.
Because if you don't,
Then I feel that I should have and I could have done better and I didn't put enough effort, and that next time I should do things better.
because if I don't do what I should, then
Maybe yes, I'm supposed to maybe reach something and didn't reach that goal or didn't come to that because I didn't do better.
And when you don't do as well as you thought you should, how do you feel about yourself?
Disappointed, but but I'm learning to to get over it and then just do better next time.
Okay. All right. If we can just hold somewhere in our awareness the possibility that you're demanding that you do your best may not be as helpful as you wanting to. And the result of demanding might lead to some nervousness or anxiety. It's just a hypothesis for you to consider. So what issue do you want to bring up?
Well, I have so much going on right now, so I figured, volunteer and not losing anything. But I have... my sister is very sick, so my whole family is going through so much right now. And it's hard to, I guess even, thinking rationally that things happen when it's someone very close to you.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Okay.
So, what emotion are you experiencing, Sandy, about your sister's illness?
I think right now, you mean, or just generally?
Well, right now.
I think mostly fear, and sometimes anger. I think a lot of fear.
Fear is the main one?
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling that now?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel it? Yeah. May I ask what the illness is? If you're not comfortable disclosing,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. But
Cancer. Mm-hmm.
and the prognosis?
Not good.
It's not good.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes doctors can be wrong, and sometimes they can be right.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry.
It's okay.
It's a difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can I help you?
I think that sometimes I try to, I guess, have different roles and like take on different roles in the family. So maybe be, act as a therapist to my mom, my sister, but then not really taking care of myself. So, putting myself on the side to try to think, how I can take care of the situation and everything that's going on right now, but not really taking care of myself and my emotions at all.
And where is that getting you?
I think sometimes I feel that, I don't know, like in a corner, like I'm just trying to fix everything, but I'm not opening up at all, emotionally.
Opening up meaning?
Like analyzing how I feel and something like that. Or just, thinking how should I?
Should? I mean, how would it be good that?
How to handle it emotionally. But, thinking about everything that's going, it's hard to, think anything positive out of it.
Okay, so I'm thinking of how to best use our time. It's a heavy and dramatic situation. There's no doubt about it. And it is very sad. And if you came up saying you wanted to feel less sad, I might try to discuss with you the fact that life does contain loss and suffering. And if we don't accept that, then we can create those inner corner emotions. So is there a part of your thinking that's not accepting the reality of what's going on? I'm trying to do some detective work to clarify the debilitating emotion that you want to change and the actions that would help you. That's why I'm asking all these questions. So what do you think you're telling yourself to... You've told me different things, that there's fear, there's anger, and at times you feel in a corner and you don't know what you should be feeling. Can you clarify for me what you think is most valuable for you, for us to look at right now?
I think definitely the fear is a major one. Fear, anxiety.
Fear and anxiety.
The future.
Yeah, okay. So Sandy, what are you telling yourself to make yourself feel that fear and anxiety?
And I don't know what's going to happen, questioning the future.
Can we pause there? Who knows what's going to happen? Questioning the future meaning?
Just not knowing what's going to, that life unfolds, and I guess I'm learning that it's not always how you expect it. So,
Yeah. Do you know anyone who's got a crystal ball that can show us what's going to happen? Neither do I. Darn. So, you don't know what will be. Who knows what will be? Yeah. What else might you be telling yourself or thinking or believing to make yourself feel so anxious?
I guess sometimes I think of all the different scenarios that might happen. If this happens, then...
Tell me specifically, what are the worst case scenarios?
Worst case would be losing my sister. And then sometimes I think about that and how life will look then after. And then I worry about my mom, about, my family.
Obviously, you're very loving, very caring, very sensitive. Sometimes miracles happen. So where there's life, there's hope. You've shared with me, and thank you for your trust, that the prognosis isn't good. So unless things change, may I be very straightforward. It sounds from what you tell me that, what's your sister's name?
Sally.
Sally?
Yep.
That Sally might pass on before you do. That seems to be a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of anyone else whose brother or sister at a young age has died before them? Yeah. And how are they coping?
Coping, I think, after some time, it gets a little easier and better.
So do you think if Sally passes, way before we want her to, that you would find a way to cope? Really?
I think, when you're forced and you're in that position.
No one will force you. It will be your choice. You can sink into depression. But please hear me. You'll have a choice. And you don't have to.
Yeah.
If Sally passes before you and your mum and others in your family, it will be a huge loss. And in all probability, there'll be grief and you'll miss her because you love her. Are you and your mum going to live forever?
No.
So each one of us has our time, yeah? Although it sounds like Sally's might be really way too soon. Have you heard of other parents who've lost children who cope? Yeah.
Yes.
Think it's possible your mum will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, if the worst case scenario happens and she passes, tell me a realistic way in the light of just the context of we're all going to die. And a lot of us lose people way too young. My cousin, who was like a little brother, died when he was 21. So I'm feeling it with you. I mean, I can't imagine the depth of yours, but I have a sense. So in the light of that, Sandy, tell me how you might think about this probable reality. May it be years away, but we don't know. By the way, may it not happen. The Martians might come and kidnap us all. We don't know anything other than what's right now. Tell me a different way that's authentic, not what you think I want to hear. I don't want to hear that. Is there a different way you can consider the situation with beautiful Sally?
Mm-hmm. I think that's why when I did lose a friend, when I was younger in college, and I think that it happens, and it's something that is not rare, or, like in life it happens. I think it's just hard when it's someone that's very close to you, thinking, I can't believe it's happening to me.
It is happening to you. So
Right.
What can you tell yourself, Sandy, to help yourself?
That everything will be okay.
Can we be more specific? Everything will be okay? I don't know if everything will be okay. Tell me what will be okay. I hope everything will be okay, but there's no guarantee. But some things have a high probability of being okay. Tell me what they are, Sandy.
I do tell myself that no matter what happens, that it will be okay, because life will go on and you learn ways to cope with it.
Talk about yourself. I can learn ways.
And I can learn ways to cope with it. Just, and I do look at other people that have lost people in their lives, and you just learn ways to cope with it, and life just goes on.
If we choose to let it go on. But it can go on and we can be miserable, or we can be less miserable a lot of the time. What at this point do you want your choice to be?
Definitely to overcome, if that, does occur, the worst scenario, and to live life fully, and to...
Tell me 3 things that will contribute to you living life fully after Sally goes.
Understanding that nothing is in your power to change, or in my power to,
Nothing?
not nothing. Some things are not in your power to change, so accepting that and changing my thinking to just be more positive now and in the future.
So tell me something positive. About Sally, when it happens, not being with you. Tell me some specific positive things that you might tell yourself.
I can't think of anything positive, if not.
If I just lost I don't have a sister. If I had a sister and she just died, and I said, Sandy, tell me, what can I think to get myself out of this depression? What can I do? Sandy, what would you tell me?
To live life to the fullest.
How?
Because I think just it would be an experience learning that, like I said, some things are not in your control. So I think it will just be an experience to make you stronger, to understand that in life some things happen that are just not in your control.
And what are some nice things I can do to help me get through that raw early period of grief? What would you tell a client?
To just go through the process of grief.
It's very general, Sandy. Tell me an activity. Suggest an activity.
I would say to engage in something that you like. Just
An activity. I think that's a good suggestion. Tell me some activities you like, Sandy.
Writing.
What?
Writing.
Writing?
Right.
Could express the depth and the color of your emotions. You could express your journey. What else? What other activities do you like?
Just being outdoors and exploring.
Do you think nature will still exist?
Yes.
Will it be there and welcome you?
Yes.
If you welcome it. Yeah. So what I'm wanting you to do is to consider, in order to dilute a recurring idea that I don't know what's going to happen after Sally dies. So having sought some specific suggestions, might that be helpful?
Yes.
What are some things you could do in the chapter you're in now, every day, that could enhance your time with Sally and your mother and yourself? What can you do more of that would be positive?
I think just spending quality time.
Do you?
No, I don't believe it's enough.
Ah, okay. Is that in your power to change?
Not really, but
May I be bold and say I don't agree? If you make it a priority. Now, tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong.
no, I think that's true.
Because I've been with dying people I adore, and I made it a priority, and I still was able to work, and I still was able to meditate. That was my self-care at the time. Yeah. So I believe with an intelligent, bright woman like you, if you make a conscious decision, even though it seemingly hasn't been your habit till now, you could choose to adopt more self-care. You indicated before you're neglecting yourself, and you said at times you feel fear, at times you feel angry. I'd be pissed off if I neglected myself as much as it seems you do. So that might help with that. And then it seems you might be overwhelming yourself if you share with, you know, like, there's this. If you are not making quality time, do you think there's a way of prioritizing things?
Yes.
Tell me, give me some details. I like details.
I think that sometimes, sometimes I do avoid spending a lot of time because I don't want to experience those negative emotions when I'm just...
Okay, but what creates the negative emotions?
Thinking that...
Yeah. What if I said to you, Sandy, what if I said to you, you may not see Sally anymore, you can go to her funeral? What would you say? Would you want to spend time with her?
Yes. Sure.
And can you change the negative emotions you've felt till now that have you hesitate? By telling yourself what?
That I want to spend more time without those negative emotions, just focusing on actually spending quality time with her.
Then unhealthy negative emotions come from what you're telling yourself. And if it's stuff like, how will I live without her? I can't stand that she's suffering. This is awful. I can understand why you would want to avoid that. But if you tell yourself, she's not comfortable, but she's happy that I'm with her, find funny things to do with her. Draw, write, see funny movies. Get her to be creative. If you stop telling yourself, I can't stand what is, when it is. People die all the time. So if you're there because you ignored this nutcase who said you can't see her till she dies, and you want to, and you find things to do with her, do you think you might feel fewer dreading negative emotions and just cherish every moment? Hopefully lots of them till the day might come. I think so too. You know the word fun? I mean, it's kind of, you have an opportunity now to have real quality time, ironically with Sally, that you might not have had if she had lived beyond you.
Right.
You can make quality time now. What a gift. And with your mum. Bring her in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's good.
What do you feel when you think about doing that?
Feels good. Feels that I don't feel, that fear. It's
So
not
it's a
there.
possibility. Allow yourself to feel excited about that. I know a lot of people who have brothers or sisters and they don't argue, but they don't make quality time. They're so busy. And you know what? It might be, later than when Sally dies, but one will die and the other person is, I wish I'd spent more quality time. Guess what? You got a chance. How lucky are you, given the misfortune of her ill health? That's life, you get a gift and you get a challenge. And you were talking about when you think of accepting it, you feel better. Yeah.
Yes.
So about the anger, feeling in a corner, what quality things do you intend to do, if any, going forward from this moment?
I think if I replace, thinking, or feeling angry or upset, I think if I replace those positive thoughts.
What activities, self-care activities?
Same, I would just engage in more something that makes me feel better.
I'm sorry if I sound a bit rushing, it's because of time.
Right.
May I suggest priority, quality time? Then time outdoors and write your feelings. You told me those are things you like. Would that be useful?
Yes, definitely.
And then in your own words, when you're with beloved Sally, what attitude?
To just really spend quality time, happy time.
How will you think differently so you don't create the dread, the fear that has been preventing you from being with her more? What can you tell yourself?
I like what you said about having a chance now, and some people don't have that chance.
A lot of people. Oh, a lot of people. Yeah. What are you feeling right now?
More relaxed.
More relaxed, does that mean less nervous? Are you feeling nervous or anxious? Why do you think that is?
Just, I think, because I was able to share.
Oh, I think it's more than just sharing. What else?
Trust.
Well, when you sat here, you told me you felt nervous, you felt anxious. We uncovered a little bit about the potential need for people not to judge you, but we don't have time to look at that, but work on that. And then this very sad situation of Sally's declining health. But we don't know. There may be a miraculous cure, and there may not be. But we talked about what you can do to not neglect yourself and to have quality time with her, right? So what in our conversation so far might be contributing to you not feeling anxious and you feeling more calm and relaxed?
I think a different perspective and just...
Specifically, tell me specifically.
Having a plan.
Forgive me for being pushy. You know where I'm coming from.
Yes.
I want the best for you in the short time we have.
Yes.
So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not demanding,
Yes, yes.
but I want you to really get as clear as possible. So tell me specifics, if you would.
I think I feel a little better that maybe I have a plan moving forward and just, different thinking.
Can I tell you what I think might be contributing? And tell me if I'm wrong. I don't need to be right. I want to be helpful. I don't need to be right. I think maybe you feel more calm because you have some hope that some good times are ahead and some belief that it may not be as much of a hell when she goes as you weren't even letting yourself think about. When we look at what we're afraid of, sometimes we see not that it's okay, it's not so okay, but that it's part of life and we can cope and still have a meaningful life. Yeah. Any comments or questions for me?
No, I see how, sometimes you just have to think differently and analyze how you're thinking and just looking from a different perspective.
You don't have to, but if you don't, you'll suffer for the rest of your life. That's a good idea. What are you feeling right now?
Relaxed.
You look more relaxed. What are you feeling there?
Nothing.
Don't go anywhere. Is 20 minutes up? How long? Am I deaf? I didn't hear.
12:34.
I didn't hear.
Nobody wanted to interrupt.
People care. So, in 34 minutes.
Wow, it's a long time.
Is that what it was? You transformed fear, nervousness, and anxiety into relaxation. I didn't do it. I didn't do it for you. You did that. Sandy, do you see the power that you've got to create how you feel?
Definitely.
And by the way, you're a therapist?
I'm a school psychologist.
Do you see how the more you work on yourself, potentially the more effective you can be? Although my hunch is you're beautifully effective. Your care, your kindness comes through, which is why it's really important to prevent burnout. And quality time with your loved ones, time outdoors, writing, and whatever else. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep it up. Email me. Let me know. Will you? We'll talk after. Yeah. We'll keep in touch. Do you like REBT? I love REBT. So how much time do I have? You're very polite and very quiet. How much? 25 minutes. Great. Oh, I think I set this to go off 10 minutes before 1, so that'll be my question time. Okay, so just quickly, what I did with Sandy, and then I want to share with you tools and techniques, some of which I applied, obviously not all. Do you see how I persisted in clarifying the goal? And you know, when we work with clients or when we're working on ourselves or with loved ones in our life, even for those of you or any of you watching who are not therapists, it's really helpful to get clear on what exactly is not working for us and what exactly we want to change. Hence my questioning, and Sandy very patiently did her best to reply, and some of my questions it seemed familiar to her because she would say, I don't know, and I appreciated, like, she's being honest, she's not just trying to find an answer that sounds right. And so then my question, what might it be? Sometimes when we tell ourselves we don't know something, it may be because we think we have to know the perfect or exactly right answer. And there may not be one. Sometimes it's a hunch. Work with that, you know. I hope, Sandy, where are you? I'm nearsighted. Hello. I hope you felt my genuine compassion. But also I was no nonsense and somewhat assertive. An effective REBT practitioner on oneself or professionally, really, sometimes it's tough love in order to get a person to think differently and not just go along thinking the way they've been thinking that hasn't served them. So there was a clarifying of her emotions, I'll be really quick now, and the thinking that contributed to creating them. There were some suggestions of, and as often as possible, I tried to get Sandy to put in her words rather than feed to her what she should tell herself. You know, so she came up with some healthy ways of thinking about a very sad circumstance. Huh? And then there's the pragmatic, what can you do? And looking at activities. And if nothing else, I'm feeling privileged to have been part of this because maybe I've witnessed that as a result of this, Sandy, you're going to have beautiful times with your family that you may not have had as many of if not for this. So anyway, I could go on, but more importantly, probably to get to the tools and techniques. So there are 3 main bodies of REBT tools and techniques, and they're in the category of cognitive, behavioural, and emotive. But sometimes there's an overlap. So let's start with some of the cognitive tools and techniques. Each of you have a hard copy of handouts, and those of you watching now, I believe, have a handout. Yes, thanks. Thank you, Mary Bullock. So one of them is the self-help form. And when we're aware we're creating one of those unhealthy emotions that I described earlier, that's a really effective tool. And Sandy, it will be for you because you like writing. And so you identify the activating event that appears to be contributing to creating let's stick with anxiety. Use it with any of the unhealthy emotions that I described. So you clarify what happened as objectively as possible. I got fired, I failed my exam. My loved one has a terminal illness. Whatever it is that appears, because it doesn't really, but it appears to create the emotion. And then the emotion, in our example, anxiety. And then you go to B, which stands for beliefs, specifically irrational beliefs. Al used to say, or the bullshit that you tell yourself. And you look for the shoulds and the musts and the wants, the oughts and the catastrophizing and the awfulizing and the self-damning, other damning of life, it shouldn't be happening, etc. As many as you can. And then you get to the D, you dispute each one of them. And again, one of the gifts of REBT is it encourages us to not just change an unhealthy to a healthy thought, but to dispute the guts out of the irrational one, and then from a clearer slate, come up with the effective new rational beliefs and philosophies. And you dispute, it's in the handout, pragmatically, logically, Socratically. Where is the evidence? Where is it getting me to think like this? Is it helping me or hurting me? Can I really not stand it? And so you zap each belief and come up with the E on the form. Healthy, effective new beliefs and philosophies. And that's not enough, because remember what I told you before, to maintain healthier emotion requires ongoing effort. And so REBT recommends at least 30 days of homework. Now, Al in his genius used to say that back in the 40s. Now, neuroplasticity research shows that it takes at least 30 days to form new neural pathways in the brain, new habitual ways of thinking to replace the old crappy ones. So we give ourselves homework. Doing a sheet every day for 30 days is one homework. Another cognitive technique approach, cost-benefit ratio. What are the advantages of maintaining this thinking or behaving versus the disadvantages? Distraction methods, they're not particularly elegant, meaning an elegant solution in REBT is you get to the source of the unhealthy emotion, the must, the should, the ought, and you zap it so it's more permanent. Inelegant ones are temporarily helpful, but may not lead to lasting change. But sometimes they're appropriate. For instance, if someone's in a rage, tell them to do their ABCs. You better run for the hill. They may create more anger or rage. So at times, it might be helpful to distract oneself. Go outdoors, do some yoga, see a movie, work out, run around the block, until one gets to a state of greater equilibrium, and then one could adopt one of the elegant solutions. Look for the irrational beliefs, for example, and challenge them. So distraction methods, modelling methods. Sometimes people are discouraged when they have a goal of, I don't want to feel as anxious or whatever as I'm feeling, but they're not sure they can achieve it. Then it's helpful to think of other people who have achieved what you want to achieve. I asked Sandy, do you know of anyone else who's been able to cope? So that can help dilute any idea, I won't be able to cope. Other people have. You know, and then think of who inspires you. It could be memories of a now dead person, your grandmother. It could be a living aunt. It could be Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, a figure that inspires you. What would they do? How would they think? So it's useful to have models as proof it's humanly possible to achieve my goal. It's helpful to share REBT with others. As we share it with others, it reinforces it in ourselves. And I'm talking in our personal life and adopting a healthy attitude. Another thing that REBT encourages us to do, and whilst Al certainly agreed, I'm emphasizing it more in my work, the importance of gratitude, daily gratitude, especially during the dire times. And the more we do it when times are easier, the easier it will be to get into that habit of, yes, even though this is happening, I can be grateful for this. Even though my Sally is not in good health, I have my mother, I have my nature. To remember what we can be grateful for daily is another cognitive offering of REBT, to focus on what is good. Okay, now quickly, behavioural exercises, risk-taking, healthy risk-taking, and in vivo desensitisation. This is helpful for people with social anxiety, who are very shy, who need the approval of others, who don't need others to think badly of them. If any one of us who suffers from that is willing to put ourselves out there, to do something a little odd, not dangerous, that won't get us arrested, but that gets attention, while we actively tell ourselves what they think of me is all about them and not that much about me. Sure, my actions contribute. At a workshop, Al and I asked people during the break, lunch break, go and do a shame-attacking exercise. Come back after and tell us what it is. If it kills you, we'll give you a nice funeral. Anyway, so the Institute used to be in the most expensive part of New York City, and a man put a string around a banana and walked down Park Avenue. And people would look at him. And one woman said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Can't you see I'm taking my banana for a walk?" And he came back to the workshop elated because he was able to understand. Her opinion was all about her tendency to judge. He was doing an innocent, quirky thing. So, to do healthy risk-taking, to put ourselves out there, whilst not just I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this in order that I remind myself, worst case scenario, they think I'm nuts, so what? And that's something, Sandy, I want you to work on, not to need people to judge you as okay. And by the way, can't many of us relate to that? Yeah, a lot of head shaking. So. All right. Reinforcements. For example, if I gave someone homework to do this 30 times a day, 30 times a day for 30 days, or every day for 30 days, but they're a little unmotivated, I'd say, what do you do every day that you like? And if the person says, well, I like a chocolate before bed, I would say, no chocolate till after you've done the homework. And if they're earnest about doing the homework, that positive reinforcement can help encourage them to really practice what they intended to do. Now, as mentioned earlier, an aspect of rational thinking is humour. And Al wrote lyrics to popular songs of the day to show us the quirky nature, the fallible ways of human beings that create unnecessary suffering. And each of you, I trust, has a song sheet. And those of you, hello people around the world, hello, I haven't forgotten you. You can get a handout. let's sing one of the songs. Now, this for me can be a shame attack because, as you'll hear, I'm not a great singer, but I do it with gusto. And if you don't mind my saying, and if you do, oh well, I'm going to say it anyway, you're kind of quiet. So please, and you don't have to, but I'd love it if you'd sing loudly. So let's do Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. And it reminds us that if we have expectations that aren't met, we can be resentful and nasty and hate. And if we don't have expectations, then we can be humorous. Let's sing it because we've only got a few more minutes, and I don't know a good note to start. And turn the volume down, technical guys, if you want, on me. Here we go. Mine eyes have seen the glory of relationships that glow and then falter by the wayside as love passions come and go. Let's go faster. Oh, I've heard of great romances where there is no slightest lull, but I am skeptical. Bum, bum. Glory, glory, hallelujah. People love you till they screw ya. If you'd listen how they do ya, then don't expect they won't. Glory, glory, hallelujah. People cheer ya, then poo-poo ya. If you soften how they screw ya, then don't expect they won't. You are fabulous. Thank you. You're very good at singing. Thank you. So, very quickly, the emotive evocative exercises in REBT. The shame attack is both behavioral and emotive. Rational emotive imagery, which I often use in demonstrations. It didn't seem appropriate today. We imagine the worst, that someone we love is dying or died, and we evoke the emotion. We feel it in our body. And then we change that. When I'm demonstrating, I usually say, now turn down the degree of that or get rid of it. And when you've done that, open your eyes. And usually it takes less than 60 seconds. And I say, like I said to Sandy, wow, it took you less than 60 seconds, well, 36 minutes, but to change that. How did you do it? I didn't do it. And they'll say, well, I just focused on the positive, or I just laughed at it, or they'll tell me what they did that they weren't doing in order to evoke that emotion. So that's rational emotive imagery. It's helpful to do role play. I did a bit of reverse role play with Sandy to record your healthy rational ideas, that you say them vigorously and listen to them often every day. And also record any disputing vigorously and listen to that every day. I can stand what I don't like. I just don't like it. Something like that, yeah? And they're basically the main methods. Of course, any books by Joffe Ellis and the book by he and I, that's for sale here. And I'm not trying to sell books, I'm just telling you resources. Your library might have some of the books. We'll go into more detail about the techniques that I shared with you. So I think we have 5 minutes for questions. I'm sorry we don't have more time. It's your fault because you didn't tell me it was 20 minutes. But REBT encourages us to be flexible, and I'm very glad that you didn't. And I thank you for your sensitivity to me and to Sandy. Hey, Sandy. Questions? And please come to the mic. Anyone with a question or a comment? And as quickly as you can, because we only have... Oh, we can go longer. Yay. So anyway, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
This was an amazing presentation, and I think I learned a lot about REBT. And my question is there varying effectiveness of REBT with different anxiety disorders? From my understanding, with panic disorder, there seems to be more of an emphasis on the physiological symptoms, such as increased heart rate, and basically things that appear as the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And with, and like the cognitive aspect of anxiety, like the catastrophizing of situations, that seems to be more prevalent with generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety disorders. So does the effectiveness of REBT kind of depend on the comorbidity of like panic disorder with another anxiety disorder that like involves more of the cognitive symptoms? Does that kind of make sense? I feel like I went everywhere with that.
No, I think I understand your question. So with manic episodes or people, I'm very glad you asked questions, with conditions such as OCD or borderline, certainly benefit from longer-term REBT. Some people who create anxiety simply from their thinking and are bright and understand principles can do the work on their own. Some people with various conditions benefit from appropriate medication in order to bring biochemical balance. But REBT considers that's one wing of a flying bird. REBT wants a person to empower themselves, to take a part in creating their emotions. So where it's appropriate for medication to bring a kind of equilibrium, that's not empowering, that brings an equilibrium. But that, plus some REBT or other approaches, I'm not saying REBT is the only one, it's the only one I love right now. And, well, it's not the only one I love, it's the one I love the most to practice. I feel it's the most holistic. Yeah, so that's empowering. So I have worked with people who experience panic, who have not taken medication, and who've had success. And often a lot of in vivo desensitization, we might go together to situations where the panic is experienced, you know, or do some of the rational emotive imagery and also give that as homework. So again, it's not one size fits all with REBT, and you tailor what you offer and the tools and the manner. I was kind of assertive with Sandy. If someone had come whose loved one had died that day, I would have had a different tone. So it's not one size fits all, one tone fits every person or every session, so one varies. So to answer your question, REBT can be effective for each of the experiences that you asked about. Some people, with some of them, will benefit from medication plus REBT, and others, if they push their ass and persist, they can experience a healthy emotional life. Thank you.
That's a great answer.
You. Yes, yeah.
At the beginning of your talk, you placed REBT within the context of human potential.
Of what, sorry?
Human potential.
Potential, sorry, yeah, there's feedback.
Okay, human potential?
Doing potential?
Human potential, our species
human
and what we can
potential.
become, REBT.
Right, right.
You just demonstrated an extraordinary example of REBT with Sandy, an individual experiencing extreme emotional distress. I'm asking you to describe a rather large group REBT session consisting of all the members of our species, a big group, everybody. All over the world, people are experiencing extreme emotional stress resulting in polarizing threats to democratic institutions and civilization itself. How could REBT reduce the intensity of the emotional component of political beliefs, hopefully resulting in a more tolerant approach to advancing civilization and realizing the potential of our species?
Beautiful question, thank you. Well, I believe you attended some of Al's weekly Friday night workshops. People would come on Friday night, members of the public pay in the beginning $1, it only, $2 for decades, and at the end of his life it was $5. And he would start off saying, welcome to the REBT workshop, where I try to cure every screwball in town, one at a time. Takes a long time. Yeah, Albert Ellis. So, act locally, think globally. If more people would practice tolerance and unconditional other acceptance and not demand that others think the way that they I do, then it would happen. How utopian, if only. If only. I think the only way I can think of that happening is one person at a time, modeling tolerance and unconditional acceptance to people they come across. And then hopefully that person will do the same with others. And then hopefully that person will do the same with others. You know, I don't want to comment on politics now, other than to say that I feel some hope whenever I see people from different parties who are honest enough and willing enough to express common humanistic thoughts, which exist in both parties, in the principles at least. So unless, one does compulsory lobotomies, widespread, the only way that I can imagine change will come, and I think this is how change comes. One person affecting another, who affects another 3, who affect another 9, and then it spreads. And we don't have to be therapists. After Al died, I was very alone in New York City. The people who had acted in friendly ways for some time in our work environment were now hostile against me. In my New York environment, I had very little support. I had no support. In my neighborhood, there were a couple of kind people for a while, but they had to get on with their lives. No family. I remember one day walking down 7th Avenue, and a homeless person smiled at me, and that changed my day. So we don't have to be therapists, we don't have to be saints, but we can smile at people, we can show care at any opportunity, and the greatest gift is to us more than the person we're helping. So my answer is, the only way I can think of to increase tolerance in society is one person at a time. Thank you for that question. Thank you. So, I guess, anyone else have a comment or a question? Okay, well, thank you again for having me. Thank you for your attention. I thank Sandy for your courage. Bloody well do your homework. Hey Aussies, do I sound Australian? Thank you. I'm sure what we did has touched other people, but so what? You know what to do, right? Please take anything, one thing, some things that you thought of today that can enhance your life, and as much as possible, share it with others. I thank you. I thank you. Thank you. So I guess I'll be at the back if anyone wants to say hello, hug, do anything.